It is Wednesday, January 24th, and the Splash Zone is back in your life. I am Matt Modi with my 4 favorite NBA player props for tonight's NBA betting slate. We got a pretty good night on tap for the NBA, and all 4 of my picks are of the plus money banger variety, which you gotta love. But before I can give you my picks for tonight, I gotta do a recap from yesterday, which was fine, nothing special. I gave out another 4 picks yesterday. I went exactly 2-2, cashing 2 of my 4 picks. I got wrong. D'Angelo Russell under 7.5 assists. Just the wrong read there. Even without LeBron, I didn't think he would get there. Obviously, he did. And then I also had Josh Giddey over 4.5 assists. He only ended with 3. But I was able to cash James Harden 10 plus assists, and I was able to cash Nikola Jokic 30 plus points. Because of the juicy plus money banger odds, we did end the day with some profit. We are up 0.25 units. Obviously, we're not breaking the bank with that type of profit, but also I will not apologize for a profitable day. On the entire year, that brings our profit. We are up 38.93 units, so just below that 40 unit number with an ROI of 24.09%. Now, we had the hot streak of all hot streaks 2 weekends ago, where I went 12-1 over a 4-day span. Since then, we've mostly been breaking even. Nothing crazy, not a horrible cold streak, which I'll take, but we also haven't made that much in the past week, which I think it's time for that to change. I love my picks for today. As I mentioned, all 4 are of the plus money banger variety. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, that's what I try to do. I try to find a little bit more long shot plays, because if you have 2-2 nights like we had last night, you will end with some profit. And if you can have a week like we had 2 weekends ago, we were up 12 units in a 4-day span. So just really successful weekend. Let's hope we can replicate that. If you are not already, I would appreciate if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, so that way when we go on the next hot streak, which I think starts today, you can be along for the ride. But we can get into it. That's enough BS. The first play is in the Timberwolves versus Wizards game, and I'm taking Anthony Edwards, 30 plus points, plus 100 odds at ESPN Bet. This is the only play this is the lowest odds of the day, I should say, at plus 100. Everything else is above this number. Now, I will admit, on Monday, I liked Anthony Edwards' points in a matchup against the Hornets. That was the game in which Karl-Anthony Towns blew up and scored 64 points and had 44 in the first half. So Anthony Edwards, he only attempted 10 or 11 field goals in that game. There really was no chance for him to do anything because everybody was trying to pass to Cat. In that game, Anthony Edwards only scored 9 points. Now, it has been a little bit of a hit or miss past 10 days or so for Anthony Edwards. In the past 10 days, he's only scored 30 plus points twice. And in that same span, he scored single digits in 3 separate games. Granted, one of those games was the one we just talked about where everybody was giving it to Cat. And in the other 2 games, he played fewer than 30 minutes. Now, he has been dealing with a little bit of something the past week or so, but as of right now, he's got no injury designation heading into this game. So I think he should be fully healthy, and I think it's going to be the night where he's going to get his. The Wizards are just such a juicy matchup, pretty much across the board, to be honest. Like, they're a juicy matchup for any position you can look at because of how bad their defense is, which means that a lot of players put up cartoonish stats against the Wizards. That also makes it a little bit difficult to guess who, because it could be anybody. For me, I'm calling my shot that for tonight, it's going to be Anthony Edwards. I love this as a fade of recent results, which is another part of my betting strategy, right? I try to find plus money bangers. I also try to bet the opposite of what recently happened, because that's just the way the NBA works, right? There are highs, there are lows, it's a long season. As soon as things start to swing one way, generally they start swinging back the other way, and you can find some value betting the opposite of what recently happened. And as I mentioned, Anthony Edwards only scored 9 points in his last game out. He gave the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns every single time. Tonight, I think he's going to get his. In the past 2 games, he's only attempted 10 and 11 field goals. That's very low for Anthony Edwards, who's normally in the 20s. And he had a game in the past, or a stretch in the past 10 games where he attempted 28 field goal attempts in one of these games. And for tonight, it's just such an incredible matchup for someone like Anthony Edwards, who is very good and aggressive at attacking the rim. The Wizards give up the second most points in the paint per game in the NBA. And that's where I see Edwards having success. I see him attacking the basket, even with Rudy Gobert there. Rudy Gobert is not someone that you just feed the ball to down low and let him go work. So even though the Wizards give up a lot of points in the paint, I do not expect this to be a Rudy Gobert game. And instead, obviously, I think it's going to be a Anthony Edwards per Courtside Pal, which is an amazing website that I use all the time. The Wizards give up the 5th most points per game to someone of Edwards' shot profile and the 3rd most points per game to someone of his scoring profile. Now, I know that might sound confusing, and I did explain the difference in a previous video. Basically, shooting profile measures where the player takes shots, whether they actually go in or not. Scoring profile measures skill, where they actually score. So if someone shoots a ton of 3-pointers but doesn't make them, that's the difference, right? That's how that would apply. So for tonight, I love backing Anthony Edwards. I think he's going to come through for us. Have a great game. That's our first play. Next up, in the Hawks versus Warriors game, I'm taking DeJounte Murray over 7.5 assists. This is at plus 110 odds at BetMGM. Now, for full disclosure, if you check my Pick'It page, I was able to lock this in at plus 120. As I was giving this play out, the odds moved to plus 110, but it's still really good value at that number, so I would still recommend taking it. And honestly, as long as you can get plus 100 or above, I would lock this one in. And I know that I'm going back to the well. I just went with DeJounte Murray assist on Monday, and he didn't come through for us. He didn't even come close. I had him to get to 10. He only got 6. But I like backing him today for a bunch of reasons. For starters, I took him 10 plus assists on Monday at plus 165 odds. Now we're getting him 2 fewer assists to cash this over, and we're still getting it for plus money. Now, I am going to ladder him up to 10 plus assists as well. You can get pretty good odds on that at plus 290. I think that value is incredible. All the stats I gave out on Monday, those still hold true today. His assists without Trae Young, his assist rate, his potential assist would be like 3rd highest in the entire NBA in games that Trae Young has missed. And on Monday's game specifically, you need to look at why he went under. You can't just look at his total assists and then make conclusions from there. In that game, DeJounte Murray had 18 potential assists, only 6 actual assists. That is a very, very low conversion rate and not something that you would expect game over game. For reference, that same night on Monday, Luka Doncic had 17 potential assists and had 13 actual assists. Now that's a very high conversion rate. On average, it'll be somewhere in the middle, but that does mean that more often than not, DeJounte Murray should have had 10 assists in that game. The Hawks shot 1 of 12 on 3-pointers directly from his passes. That's a horrible percentage that you figure will not happen night over night. DeJounte Murray also scored 35 points in that game, and even with that, he still should have had 10 assists. That makes it so in the 4 games that Trae Young has missed, Murray is averaging about 17 potential assists per game. And as I mentioned, that would put him 3rd in the entire NBA in that category if you extrapolate that out to the entire year. And the Warriors defense, they're horrible at guarding guards. They've allowed 6 of the last 7 point guards to go over their assist over under. That includes some guys just crushing their over, like Quickly had 10 on an over under of 4.5. CJ McCollum had 8 on an over under of 5.5. So I like backing Murray at his main line. I like backing him at his pumped up number as well. We're only going to track the 7.5, but I did put a half unit on him 10 plus. Next up, Hornets versus Pistons game. I'm taking LaMelo Ball 30 plus points, plus 116 odds at BetRivers. You can also get this at plus 115 at DraftKings. This seems like a high number for LaMelo, backing him to get to 30 points. He has yet to score 30 points since he returned from injury. But the very, very important difference with tonight versus those other games since he returned from injury, there's no Terry Rozier. He's been traded to the Miami Heat, which means he's no longer on the Charlotte Hornets. That's how trades work. With Rozier off the court, LaMelo's usage rate goes from 32%, which is already a very high number. 32% is a high usage rate. That goes up to 35.26%. That is the 3rd highest usage rate increase with Rozier off the court, that 3% increase. And again, his usage rate was already super high. For context, Luka Doncic, who I know we just talked about, he has the 2nd highest usage rate in the NBA. His number is at 35.9%. LaMelo's with Rozier off the court is 35.26. That would be the 3rd highest in the NBA. And if you look at the 3rd highest right now, not including those numbers, that would be Giannis, who's all the way down at 32.3%. So it's a pretty big gap between the top 3, including LaMelo without Rozier, than there is everybody else. And you also have to remember what LaMelo did before he got hurt, because those games, Terry Rozier was hurt as well. Before his injury, LaMelo Ball scored 30 plus points in 7 of his last 9 games. And now for tonight, he has the ultimate matchup against the Detroit Pistons, who are among the worst defenses in the NBA at guarding point guards. We've targeted the Pistons defense the entire year. Last time we did, we backed Dame Lillard. He scored 45 against them. On the year, the Pistons have given up the second most points per game, specifically to point guards. And then drilling into how LaMelo scores via courtside pal, the Pistons give up the second most points per game to someone of Ball's scoring profile and the seventh most to someone of his shooting profile. So juicy matchup for LaMelo Ball, no matter how you slice it. And with no Rozier, his usage rate is just going to skyrocket. So I love backing him to get the 30+ points tonight. Next up, our fourth and final pick of the video. Cavs versus Bucks. Donovan Mitchell, 35+ points, plus 160 odds at FanDuel. So for our last play of the slate, I love saving it for our juiciest play of the slate as well. Backing Donovan Mitchell to go off against the Bucks. Now, 35 is a very high number. I get it. But with Garland still injured, Mitchell, he just shoots so much, and he shoots so much from deep as well, that it's pretty easy to do the math between field goal attempts, three-point attempts, and free throws for him to get the 35 or more points, especially in a matchup like this against the Bucks. The Bucks are similar to the Detroit Pistons in that they are a horrible defensive team on the perimeter guarding guards. That makes sense. They play drop coverage with Brook Lopez at their center, and they have Damian Lillard, who's one of the worst defensive guards in the NBA. All that put together, it's a very good matchup for Donovan Mitchell. These two teams just played about a week ago. And yes, you're going to say, well, Mitchell went under. Why is that good? He scored 31 points, but he did that in only 26 minutes of play. The Cavs completely blew out the Bucks from the jump. Yeah, the Cavs might win again. They seem to have the Bucks number. I don't think it's going to be that big of a blowout, especially the fact that the Bucks just fired their head coach. So they're going to be a little bit more fired up than normal. If Donovan Mitchell played even a normal, let's say 30 minutes, he probably gets 2 more buckets and he probably gets the 35+ points. And we probably aren't getting as good a value as we're getting. I will say I also like his 3-point prop as well. You can get him to make 5 or more 3-pointers at plus 260 odds. I put a half unit on that bad boy as well. I think that is good value. On the year, the Bucks are giving up the 5th most points to someone of Donovan Mitchell's shooting profile and the 4th most to someone of his scoring profile. Again, 2 different things. Now, this does date back to last year, but Mitchell has scored 30 or more points in each of the last 3 games against the Bucks, including both this year, in which he scored 34 and 31. Now, it's almost been about 2 full weeks since we last saw Donovan Mitchell have a ridiculous blow-up game. That was the Paris game against the Nets. Feels like the perfect night for him to do so once again. I love this play for Donovan Mitchell. If you really wanted to get spicy, you could take him 40+ points as well. I don't know if I'm going to do that one, but I do like him to get the 35+. And that's all we got. 4 bangers for you guys to lock in. If you are riding with me, make sure to comment and let me know. Remember also to like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I will say, I don't mention this in every video, I would recommend following me on Twitter as well. I posted Jokic triple-double on Twitter last night. That came through for us. So there are plays that I tweet out that don't make it in a YouTube video. So I think there is some value there. If you stuck all this way, would appreciate it if you could follow me. And that's all I got. 4 bangers for you guys to lock in. Appreciate everybody for watching and have a good one.